And now back to George Kilpatrick and the Community Inspiration Hour, powered by the Allen Foundation on Power 620.
Welcome back, George Kilpatrick, Inspiration for the Nation, celebrating people we feel good about. Well, you know, our show is about Black equity and excellence. And when I think of Black equity and excellence, I think of LaVonda Reed. She is the Associate Provost for Faculty Affairs and Professor of Law at Syracuse University, one of my favorite people in the world. And she's here to talk about a symposium that Syracuse University is putting on. It's a symposium on equity and racial equity. It's a symposium on racial equity and academic. It's a racial equity symposium. That's what it is. And they'll have the fancy title, whatever it is. But it's the inaugural racial equity symposium. And she's here to talk about that. It's happening next week. Or this week, I guess, if you want to be technical about it, because people are always weird about what Sunday is. It's the start of the new week, so it's this week. All right, we settled that. So we're excited to talk about that. And you've got such an incredible lineup. But first, LaVonda, welcome to the program once again. Always good to see you.
Good to see you too, George. One of my favorite people in the whole world.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, so tell me about this inaugural racial equity symposium.
So we are having a symposium that is a partnership between my office and the Office of Academic Affairs, the Office of the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer under the direction of Dr. Keith Alford, the Office of Multicultural Advancement, Multicultural Affairs, Student Government. So we have partnered across the university to bring forth a discussion, a discourse about some of the things that are facing Black America today. This is a symposium that is academic in focus and focus in particular on the state of Black America. Some of the speakers that we have joining us next week are Eddie Glaude Jr. from Princeton University, Nikki Giovanni from Virginia Tech, Mark Lamont Hill, and we also have Julianne Malveaux, who is an economist, and each of them will give some perspectives over the course of the week on a whole host of things that are facing Black America and spark a discussion about the inequities that are pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID. We also have students who are going to be presenting their academic research and faculty who will be doing the same. And so we really hope that it will be intellectually engaging as well as feed the soul.
Well, I just want to make one correction. Y'all better give Dr. Julianne Malveaux her honorific.
Dr. Julianne Malveaux. I had a wonderful conversation with her yesterday.
Isn't she awesome?
She's awesome. She is awesome. They all are. And we had a wonderful planning call with her this week and a planning call with Eddie Glaude Jr. earlier this week too. And they are all very excited to engage with us.
So lay it out for me. So this is obviously virtual. We're still in the time of COVID. And so each night we'll have a different presenter. Is that how it's going to work? And how do people register and all that good stuff?
That's correct. So you can register by going to the calendar for Syracuse University. You can also find it on news.syr.edu and just type in the search engine, Racial Equity Academic Symposium, and it will come up, and you can register for each of the individual events that are happening over the course of the week. Some days there are more than one event, but on every day there's at least one event. I failed to mention too, we've got poets. I mentioned Nikki Giovanni, but we'll have some local talent and artists participating in this as well.
Yeah, you mentioned that this is, especially at a time like this, looking at how we're faring during COVID, certainly the impact on COVID on the African-American community, my family in particular, and other families in this community, and this idea of racial equity. Why was it important for Syracuse University to have this inaugural symposium at this time?
Sure. So your listeners and viewers probably are very familiar with some of the challenges that Syracuse University has had in the space of, the racial climate, let's just put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
course of the last several years. And the community has been traumatized quite a bit by what has happened. And this is an opportunity for engagement of the full university community.
Mhm.
It will raise consciousness amongst people of color and people who are not of color in the university community for the purposes of effectuating change and bringing about a more positive campus climate, a more inviting campus climate, and also providing an opportunity for our students of color, and particularly our Black students, to excel academically and to have an opportunity to engage with other scholars about the work that they are doing.
Yeah, and so basically you're saying we heard you, we hear you, and we want to do something about it. And this is one of the ways that we can begin to turn the lens on ourselves and begin to really take a look at ourselves. That's how I interpret that.
Well, yeah, that, but also to expose other people to the excellence that's in our community.
Ah, okay.
Is not intended to interrogate the Black community. This is intended to illuminate some of the challenges that are happening, raise the consciousness about that, and also, you know, to position people to figure out how they will be a part of effectuating change and making things better, whether they be people of color or not.
Yeah, and I like the fact, obviously, that it's also a platform for students to share their research and concerns, unfiltered, I imagine, when you're talking about student input, or is it where there is some editing or some editorial?
Yeah, so for the student works, I mean, students have been encouraged to submit proposals for projects that they are working on, research projects that are in relation to any aspect of race and racial equity and inequality. So it's not intended to be it's not like a town hall or
Oh,
any.
okay. Hmm.
This is most definitely, students will make a presentation to faculty panelists and they'll get feedback on the work that they're doing. That will happen on next Saturday. Throughout the week, though, students will have an opportunity to engage with the scholars that are, you know, nationally recognized and internationally recognized scholars who are coming to share their perspectives about what some of the challenges are, and perhaps offer some advice and encouragement to our students, but also to raise awareness, educate all of the others in the university who might not be conversant in issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and who just may not even know about Black excellence.
Yeah, right. And obviously this is what this is all about. And I love the just naming it, because sometimes uh, we don't want to name what it is that we're talking about. This is about Black excellence. This is about showcasing the talents that we know that are in our community, but often don't get recognized. And that fits well with what I'm trying to do in this community.
Absolutely, what you do every day, George.
I'm just trying to have a voice out here. So February 22nd through the 27th, that's all this week, different times, different events, different times. Some of them in the afternoon, some of them morning, some of them are at night. And like you said, there's a menu. So there's something for everybody. Here's a question for you though. Will these events be, after they're aired or after they're presented, will they be accessible then after the fact so that people can still get to them after they've been presented?
My understanding is that some of them will and some of them will not. For example, the student presentations, we are not recording those.
Mhm.
The students, I think, um, uh, should have the space to present ideas that might not be fully thought out,
Yeah.
and get feedback and critique on that without having to feel as if that's going to be recorded and shared, you know, in other ways after the fact. We want them to have that freedom and that latitude to grow.
Well, look at this lineup once again: Nikki Giovanni, Keisha Gay Anderson, Eddie Glaude, Mark Lamont Hill, Julianne Malveaux. Now, all of them are professors and doctors, and so I didn't do all that just this time. But
Doctors, plural, and just fill
yeah,
in the
yeah,
blank.
yeah, yeah. They're all over the place. There's doctors, you know. But and just I just, you know, what I love is Nikki Giovanni has, and she's been to Syracuse a million times. I mean, really has been a friend to Syracuse University in terms of coming to speak here. Certainly, I say friend, but you know, I have back in the day when I was a student, Nikki Giovanni was coming and doing her poetry at Syracuse, and One of the last times she was here, we had a chance to meet her and got a chance to take a little picture with her. And such a great talent, really sharing her poetry and her gifts. And all of this is about sharing gifts, poetry, sharing the gifts, the intellectual gifts, the excellence that we know exists, but often doesn't get highlighted. So one more time, it's the inaugural Racial Equity Academic Symposium at Syracuse University. All this week, you can go online, calendar.syr.edu for the events. And we're asking you to, well, they're asking you, I'm asking you to register for the events, participate in the events, and really see what a critical time that we're in, and with some of the nation's top scholars. We should also mention that some of the nation's top scholars and artists, what are they talking about? What are they thinking about from different points of view? And I know Eddie Glaude has a new book out that certainly is worth, I forgot the name of the book, but maybe you know what the name.
That's right. Yeah, I've got the book right here, George. He's got a
you.
book.
How about that?
Begin Again, James Baldwin's America and its Urgent Lessons for Our Own.
You got that right there. Look at that.
Right
on
there.
you.
That's right. These are brilliant scholars, thought leaders in the country, it's great role models for our students to see, great role models for our staff and faculty, great role models for everybody in the university community. Will help us elevate thinking on this, and also to kind of chart some paths forward.
LaVonda Reed is the Associate Provost for Faculty Affairs at Syracuse University and Professor of Law. LaVonda, thank you so much. It's the inaugural Racial Equity Academic Symposium at Syracuse University all this week. Calendar.syr.edu for more details and to register. We'd like you to register for all of the events. They're all virtual, and it is your passport to excellence, not only in this community, but in this country. Thank you, LaVonda.
Thank you, George.
Inspiration for the nation.